Alex Mall. I think most of you may know of me because I've been talking to you on the phone, trying to recruit all of you to come, and it's so good to see your faces and meet all of you. I work for AmericaSpeaks. I've been in the field of citizen participation for 4 years formally, and my big experience when I've seen citizens make a real difference is kind of at probably a smaller scale, both in my neighborhood and working with the Sudanese diaspora here in Washington about the Sudanese situations. And what I've seen at the small scale is that if it's possible to host small dialogues bi-weekly in one's community and really see a difference, really see trust build and people being able to share, but also distinguish values, you know, and see where they can find common ground. But also there's conflicts along the way, but there's ways through that. There's ways to lead through that, and that's something that I study as part of my research, is how leadership can resolve conflicts. And I'm also doing some congressional interviews on the Hill, seeing how the results of public deliberation can inform public policy making. And when I've seen citizens come together and come up with policy recommendations that have then been incorporated, it's given me some confidence. That's all my background.
Good evening, Richard Morris. I'm with the Department of Labor, Employment Training Administration, and the Division of Youth Services. I don't know that I have any particular distinct advantage, but I do come out of the private sector. I spent about 20 years in the IT industry before I decided to shift gears, and I've spent the last 12 or 15 now in the field of youth development. I struggled for a moment because I want to make sure I understood the task, and so when I saw this comment around citizen participation, I pondered that for a moment. I wasn't sure we were talking about it might relate to programmatic efforts, for example, within my agency, or did that have to do with government per se, in a more general sense. So I'll give you a quick example of both. On the government side, when I look at citizen participation, what I'm particularly pleased about of late has been the expanded eligibility as we put forward solicitations. We are increasingly able to poll and bring into the fold, if you will, and offer opportunities for a larger and larger segment of potential applicants. So the days where the applicants, we could almost count them on one hand, now has blossomed, and now we're looking at community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and a whole sundry of additional organizations who can now kind of belly up and look at that as an opportunity to potentially identify some funding resources. That I'm tickled about. On the programmatic side, I think about things, for example, the number of young people that I see, the outpouring of young people I see that are in need of our services. That's always refreshing to, not to the sense that they need the service, but refreshing that we're in a position where we can do something about it. And I'm done.
Thank you, Richard.
Good evening. My name is Priya Parker. I'm also at the Harvard Kennedy School. I'm pursuing my master's in public policy. And I've been involved with this field for about 8 years. I started as a student at the University of Virginia, very frustrated with race relations there, and started, similar to Alex, dialogue groups there for students to start discussing race as an issue, and it spread to other campuses across the country, and was working with the Sustained Dialogue Campus Network to help students build race relation organizations on their campuses. 3 years ago, I had an opportunity. I'm half Indian and half American. I'm American of half Indian origin. And I had the opportunity to move to New Delhi and had been working with the Indian Parliament for the last 2.5 years. And currently, I guess the project that I would use to talk about citizen engagement and participation is something that's going on right now, which the Parliamentary Research Service is doing, which is activating citizens across India. Their national elections are coming up in April and May. And 1/5 of members of parliament have criminal records that they've been convicted for. And so right now and this actually relates to sort of technology as well, they've worked with all of the major telephone companies so that if any citizen in India text messages a specific number, they get their own member of parliament's criminal record. And then the citizens, text messages and telephones, mobile cell phones are huge right now, especially among the youth in India, and text messaging politics. And so I'll tell you the results at our Citizens or our Champions of Participation Part 3, but right now there's a lot of pressure by citizens on members of parliament, on the parties not to give tickets to criminals. So to be continued.
Thank you, Priya.
I'm Ken Vest, Communications Director with the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office, and I'm the rookie in the room. I have no experience, except as a broadcast journalist covering it. But my office provides the support, administrative and communication support to the National Nanotechnology Initiative, 25 federal agencies that do nano research. And it's actually in the law that set this initiative up. It requires public engagement, so I have to learn. I can't cite one experience. I have to cite many experiences of really lousy public engagement. I was a local television news reporter, and we used to love those late night meetings. But the one that stands out in my mind was extraordinary. It was a nuclear power plant issue. When I was working in Austin, Texas, the South Texas nuclear power plant was being restarted. It had some problems. They had taken it offline. They had some public hearings. And the final hearing, they were going to announce their decision, and they decided to put it online. The room was packed with people who were opposed, and when the announcement came, it was like a student anti-war protest. They were enraged. They shouted, "No STP," for at least 15 or 20 minutes, and I kept thinking, man, there must have been a better way to go about this.
Well, that is a great story.
I'm Walter Dunn. I'm from New Mexico, and I run a program called the Collaborative Forest Restoration Program for the Forest Service, which is a program that I had the unique pleasure of writing into statute when I was a Brookings Legislative Fellow for Senator Bingaman. And it is a project that provides federal grants to bring traditional adversaries, environmental groups, Forest Service, tribal governments, state governments, local organizations, together to collaboratively design and implement forest restoration and watershed restoration projects on public land, and projects that cross federal, tribal, state, county, and municipal land. And we now have 116 projects involving some 300 different organizations. And I'm very happy to say that this week the President is expected to sign a program called the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Act, which will take what we did in New Mexico and turn it into a national program. And so to me, this is very serendipitous to be at this meeting at the same time that this little project we tried in New Mexico that everybody said would never work is in fact turning into a national $50 million program. My background goes back some 27 years when I started as a Peace Corps volunteer in Central and South America, working with local indigenous communities who were in very corrupt systems where the only way they were going to get anything done to not starve to death or and from lack of firewood or from their river, their agricultural fields disappearing in erosion, was to get out there and work with their own hands voluntarily. So the project that I have done here in New Mexico is really an attempt to take some of the concepts of community-based forestry as it's done internationally and under the United Nations model and bring it into the United States. Don't tell anybody that's a secret, because we Americans don't like to believe we can learn anything from anybody. So I guess I'm going to cheat and provide two examples. And the first example is when I was a Peace Corps volunteer watching subsistence indigenous people in the Andes, where an entire community from little kids to grandmothers would turn out with their shovels and do work. And the second example I would say is a litigious environmental organization and a very conservative Forest Service person both standing up proudly and giving a tour of a place where a lot of trees were cut to do forest restoration.